תגיד להם, אין אופה עליהם, אין אופה עליהם. זכות הצדיק, רבי חיים יגן בעדיהם. ומי בעזרת השם, הקדוש ברוך הוא pick them up from their bed of sickness. Amen. So now, רבותיי, בעזרת השם, tonight I want to do something that we try to do every single Wednesday within our shiurim. Baruch Hashem, throughout our life, we pass through time, through days, through hours, through years, through months. And a lot of the time, we miss out on something so beautiful and so beneficial for our life. In this world, there is something that we call opportunity. And opportunity, in its nature, is not something that is always constantly there to serve you. It comes in a specific time, it comes at a specific moment. And opportunity is only as beneficial to a person as what you make out of it. When you grab the opportunity and when you take it and you truly try to bring it to a fruition. So you can take a small opportunity and make something big out of it. Or you can take a big opportunity and not doing anything at all. And something that could have been something so big never existed and blows away in the wind like nothing. Within our life, every single moment, every single day, every single hour, there is a concept of opportunity. Now, of course, each one in his own individual life needs to find within himself what opportunities does HaKadosh Baruch Hu offer him on a day-to-day basis to bring them to a fruition. But there is also general opportunities. What are these general opportunities? The holidays and what HaKadosh Baruch Hu hid already within our cycle of the year. And to every single moment, to every single hour, to every single period of time, there is a new ashpa'ah, a new influence that HaKadosh Baruch Hu influences the world. That influence, like an opportunity, can only help us, can only benefit us, can only be at any good to us if we take it and if we embrace it, make something out of it. And if we don't, so it will be a lost opportunity. We have so many lost opportunities in our life. So what we try to do, Rabotai, always, is to truly understand what is the opportunity that exists. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu hide within this period of time that we can reveal? And if so, what is it in order to benefit ourselves, to benefit our lives, to benefit our family, to come to a better place of living from all aspects? So now, we're actually in a very, very important time of the year. We are in the time of the year where we are reading from an aspect of a periodical year of how we read the Torah, the generations of our forefathers. So we see how our roots were created and how roots were essentially planted. We see the stories of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aharon, etc. And we enter into a time of a lot of ashpaot, a lot of very exciting moments within the year. Being like the month of Kislev, which is a month of opportunity, like what the Zohar Kadosh says, the month of Shvat, which is the month of man, the month of Adar, the month of Simcha, the month of Nisan, the month of miracles. So it's a period of time that, being a moment where we are learning about our ancestors and where we came from, also there's a lot of content and a lot of secret that is already installed within this period that we're not tasting, we're not taking advantage of. So that is what, Rabotai, we want to try to understand. What we can take from this week's period of learning, from this week's period of reading, for what's happening within our world at this time, and to see how really we could bring it to a fruition of benefiting us. In this week's Parasha, and as we know, the Parashot are always connected to the time. A lot of the times we can see, or we can think, that maybe the Parashot that we read are actually a coincidence. That they don't necessarily have a very, very close correlation to the year and to that aspect at the time. But year after year, HaKadosh Baruch Hu proves us differently. Of how even these parashot, that it seems to be that we're reading them at a random, actually have an extreme order and place within them and within the year and within the time and within when we read them. So in this week's Parasha, we actually read something very, very interesting that I would like to try to understand and to investigate. We see the giving of the name of who we are. As we know, Abotai, our country is called Israel. Us as a people, we are called Am Israel, the nation of Israel. And all of our ancestors that came before us, even if they lived in different countries, in different places, first they are what? Am Israel, and then they are Moroccan, Tunisian, Ashkenaz, Sephardi, whatever. In this week's Parasha, the Torah essentially gives us this titlement, this concept of Israel. Where we see that Yaakov, which essentially the name Israel doesn't just come as a nation, it was Yaakov, has an occurrence within his life that was dramatic enough where HaKadosh Baruch Hu added him the name. And added him which name? Israel, our name, or in other words, our name was given to us. So clearly, if our name was given to us, and if Yaakov had something so dramatic in his life that his name was changed, clearly there is something very, very rich and very, very deep that we need to understand here. So, in order to understand that, let's try to understand really what happened. We see Yaakov Alav Hashem wakes up in the middle of the night, the Torah says. And he decides to leave where his camp was set up. And the Torah says he started to walk and he crosses the river. What was the reason? We're not going to get into it. Once he crosses the river, the Torah says something very interesting. The Torah says, suddenly Yaakov was, Vayivaser, Yaakov, Levado. Yaakov looks right, looks left, and he finds himself what? Completely alone. The Torah says, once he was alone, who appeared? Malacho shel Esav, the angel of Esav, the angel of his brother that hates him, that hunting him, that always tried to cause him harm. Hashem yirachim. And the Torah says that the angel of Esav starts to fight a war with Yaakov. And this war didn't last a minute or two. This fight between the angel and Yaakov took the entire night. We're only at sunrise. Yaakov Avinu Alav Shalom started to come to a place where he felt that something was happening with this war, with this fight. When the sun started to come, the angel of Esav, he said, Yaakov, I have to leave now. My time is coming to worship Hashem, because even the angel of Esav needs to worship Hashem. And if I'm going to be late, my mishmeret, my time is going to get cancelled, and I won't be able to connect myself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the angel set me free. So Yaakov Avinu Alav Hashem says, no problem. I'll set you free, give me a bracha. And the bracha that Yaakov Avinu Alav Hashem receives is the bracha of what? From today, your name will no longer be Yaakov, but will be Israel. And that is where we get our name from. But there's one part within the story that doesn't make sense so much. The Torah says that Yaakov Avinu Alav Shalom was attacked by the angel only at one point. The point of what? The point when Yaakov was what? Alone. And that's where the word levado is used. Now when I hear this, I don't understand it. We know that Yaakov Avinu Alav Shalom, his tribe were not soldiers, warriors, knights, men of great power. They were what? Women and children. So this concept of alone and being that the reason that Yaakov was attacked doesn't make so much sense. Because if the angel of Esav was what represented so much power, wanted to attack Yaakov, I don't think that the women and children will be the reason of holding him back. But still we see that the angel waits until he's alone. So why is it that the angel needed to wait until Yaakov was in this place of being alone to fight a war, to attack? Now even more so, the word levad or levado is a very unique word. It's a word that is almost never used throughout the entire Torah, but in one other place. What is the other place that this word levado alone is used? In the Torah itself. En od milvado. What does that mean, Rabotai? Who can translate?
There's nobody like him.
There's nobody like him. That's in translation of meaning. But in translation of words, we say there is nobody but alone. Which doesn't make sense either. Mm-hmm. There's nobody but alone. It would make sense if you say there's nobody but Hashem's kingdomship. En od mi malchuto. En od mi gvurato. There's nothing but his strength. You can say there's nothing but his kedushato, his purity, his mercy. But there's nobody but alone. So we see that even we call HaKadosh Baruch Hu Levado, alone. So this concept of alone is actually something that we need to understand. Because this concept of Levado is used in two places. Yaakov being Levado, which was essentially the motivation of the angel attacking him, being the fact that he was alone, Levado, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu being titled Levado, alone. Very strange. So, always when there is a place of question, there is usually a very sweet answer that needs to be revealed within it. In order to understand what is this concept of levado, maybe we have to understand what did the malach want to do. And as we know, the malach strived to do what? To fight. He wanted to make a war with Yaakov. Maybe in order to understand what levado means, we could try to understand what war is, in order to see why alone was the key to igniting a war. And again, we're talking about Yaakov. It's not a physical war, we're talking about a spiritual war. Zohar Kadosh says that milchama, war, or you could even call it milchama, any type of war, any type of chaos, any type of destruction. Like all creations, it needs to have a platform to exist. It needs to have basic traits, basic things, in order for an aspect like that to even be from the first place. Zohar Kadosh says, war is very unique, or destruction, or chaos, all those aspects. It's very unique that in order for it to exist, there needs to be something special. What is it? Zohar Kadosh says two. And this makes a lot of sense. Even within our own world. When you look at a person and the person says, I'm going to fight somebody now. In order for him to fight somebody, what needs to be? Somebody to fight. You can't stand in a room alone and say, I'm fighting someone. If you're fighting somebody alone, you're mamash from Los Angeles. You're in order to fight somebody, what do you need? You need somebody to fight. Being alone is an aspect of what? Of lack of possibility of war, of chaos. So the secret of allowing chaos or war to exist is what? It's from having the first place existence of two. Once there is two, it could be two people, it could be two animals, it could be two motivations, it can be two wills, it can be two thoughts. Once there is two, chaos, war can exist. Two friends, as long as they're in the same path and they're walking in the same ratzon, with the same direction, they are one. Once one wants to go right and one wants to go left, what happens to them? They become two, and maybe these two now can create friction. That they can both smash into each other and create like a form of chaos. And that is a rule Rabotet that I want all of us to hold throughout the entire class. Chaos and destruction only comes with what? With twos. With one, it cannot exist. It's unapplicable. Zohar Kadosh says that we can see something very interesting with how we receive the Torah at Matan Torah. The Torah uses very interesting words for describing moments after the Torah was given to us. What are those words? The Torah says, Bnei Israel, they are around the mountain like what? Like Ish Echad, Belev Echad. What does that mean in translation? After Bnei Israel received the Torah's way of describing moments afterwards was that Bnei Israel are one man on the mountain. So many of the Mefashi, many of our sages, they say, what is this one man on the mountain? What is the Torah trying to teach us by telling us that Bnei Israel were one man on the mountain? So Zohar Kadosh is something very, very simple and very, very interesting. The Zohar Kadosh says before the giving of the Torah, there was a ribuy of malchuyot. What does that mean? There was an abundance of entities. Entities in its essence means something of statue, something that could exist. Zohar Kadosh says that before the giving of the Torah, the entire world was full of different leaders, of different statues, of different forms of of power. And this is where we see that in previous generations, there was a presence of idol worship. Where idol worship was not something for foolish people. Idol worship was something that even very wise people followed. There's even stories of the Gemara that Rabbanim were asking, how did big tzaddikim fall in idol worship? And the Gemara says that those tzaddikim came to the dream of those Rabbanim and said, if you were existing in my generation, you would pick up your dress and run to do idol worship with me. Mm-hmm. Where idol worship was something that existed. Now, meaning if it existed, it comes from a form of what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowing such existence to be. So in other words, there was a ribuy, an abundance of idol worship, an abundance of leaders. This abundance of leaders caused that the world was completely separated. That even within Bnei Israel, being that they are one nation, they are one people, that they are all together, still they were not all united. One was praying to this when he needed help. One was praying to that. One was being led by this leader. One was being led by that leader. There was no unity in the world at all. Zohar Kadosh says then something changed. What changed? The Zohar Kadosh said that when all Bnei Israel stood around the mountain, there was a voice, a word that was announced that the entire world stopped. What was this word? It was the first word of the 10 Commandments. Anochi. Which the first word of the 10 Commandments is what?
Anochi.
Anochi. Anochi means what? I, me. And it comes from the word Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am you, I am Hashem, your God. The Zohar HaKadosh says, the moment HaKadosh Baruch Hu announced and said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, the whole world paused. Why is that? The Zohar HaKadosh says that the word Anochi didn't just come out from the sky. The reason that it says that even the bees stopped buzzing, and the birds stopped chirping, and the water went still, was because the voice didn't just emanate from one source. But the Zohar HaKadosh said that the voice emanated from every object that exists. With a cup, from the cup became a speaker announcing the voice of Anochi. Zohar HaKadosh says, what is the secret of Anochi? What is the hidden message between the word Anochi? Aleph. What is Aleph? It's the first letter. What is the first letter? The first letter is unique. It's like none of the other letters. What is it? It's one. What was the secret of the first word that all creations, essentially the voice of Hashem came out of, I am God? What was this concept? It was the concept of HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing what? Reuniting the world. Where from every single creation, from every single object, what emanated? The sentence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's word saying, I am you, Ani, Anochi, Hashem, Elokecha. And once there is one, what cannot exist anymore? Chaos. War. Because like we mentioned, chaos, war, balagan, it all comes from an existence of what? Of being twos.
Minimum.
So being the fact that the entire world announced that Hashem is the creator, the whole world became one. And being that the whole world became one, the whole world became able to receive the Torah. And that's why we say in the Pasuk, the Kol Netivotea Shalom. What does that mean? That the Torah does something very unique. The Torah takes hundreds of different lanes, different paths, and turns them all into what? Shalom. Turns them all into peace. Turns them all into one. Why is that? Because the Torah in its essence emanates what? Emanates one. And when that one is held throughout the entire world, that even when the bee became a source of like a speaker to emanate the voice of I am God, so that the entire world turned into what? Turned into one. And if the whole world was one, meaning that there is lack of what? Lack of chaos, lack of destruction, lack of negative. Because you can't have war, you can't have fight, you can't have any sort of negative thing when there's only one. When one existing and one is b'shalom, at peace, so war, negative, doesn't exist, doesn't have a platform to exist. And the Zohar HaKadosh says, that's why we say, Bnei Israel, they were ish echad belev echad. That being, that they were the ones that were receiving this concept of one, they stood in the world and they were alone. Where each Jew looked up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and saw only one thing. He saw himself and he saw Hashem. And he looked at his friend and he didn't even see his friend as another entity. He saw his friend as what? As a part of Hashem too. So he looked right and left and he found that he is alone in the world. He is in the concept of what? Levado. Alone. That this concept of alone is actually the essence of peace. That there is no two, there is no war. That's why we said that Bnei Israel, they were one man that stood in the field. And then we see in the Torah, right after Matan Torah, a group of desert men got up. People that had no value. They weren't even a nation, they weren't an army, they weren't anything. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates them. Till today, thousands of years later, every single year, multiple times in the year, Hashem reminds us how much He hates them. Who are we talking about? Amalek. What is Amalek? The Torah says that Amalek was a small group. It was a few tribes that did peace to try to just do something. It doesn't explain what they tried to do. But Hashem, the Zohar HaKadosh says, He announced to Bnei Israel, my chair will not be complete until you destroy Amalek. And Bezrat Hashem, we're even going to read soon, in the upcoming Parasha, that we have mitzvat deoraita. There's only one time in the year where it is an obligation of deoraita to hear the reading of the Torah. Men, women, all the same thing. It's what reading? The reading of Zachor Tiskor et Zecher Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you. What did Amalek do already? What was so bad about Amalek? So many nations fought Bnei Israel. So many nations tried to destroy Bnei Israel. Why Amalek is a nation that Hashem is stuck to them. He's obsessed with them. He hates them. We even go as far as saying that his chair is not complete while they're existing. What's so bad about them? So built, and according to what we just mentioned, it makes perfect sense. Right after the giving of the Torah, what existed in the world?
Unity.
One. Alone. Which was what? Complete unity between all aspects. Where HaKadosh Baruch Hu conquered the world, where His presence was completely clear, even within every single object. So as a result of that, there was one. There was levado. There was alone. There was a complete unity. What did Amalek do? They knew that they were going to war, they were going to lose. They were a few hundred men. They weren't even fighters. But they wanted to reach to a goal. What was the goal of the Amalek that till today we remember them? Not like other enemies that actually did cause damage, that we forgive them. Amalek had one thing in mind. Not that they wanted to destroy Bnei Israel. Not that they wanted to bring harm to Bnei Israel. But that they wanted to break what Bnei Israel held at that time. Which was what? Which was what? The fact that they were alone. What did Amalek do? They stood in front of the world and they said, you know, all you other kings, like what we mentioned in Azesh Moshe, Az Nivalu, Elufei Edom, Elev Moab, Yichazeh Murad, Namogu Po, Shvei Kenan, Tipo Elem, Matav Fachat. We mention every single day that all the kings, their thrones were shaking and they didn't have the audacity to move when the Torah was given. Amalek, they came and they said, all of you, you're acting like you're a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu now. Now that you know the truth, you know that Hashem is one, you're all acting like you're a part of the Kedusha, that you are all one group. Amalek said, we're going to be another. We don't want to be a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We don't want to be a part of this unity that you see the world now all as one. So as a result of that, what did Amalek create by separating themselves by HaKadosh Baruch Hu? They created two. Wherever there is two, what is a possibility to exist? War, milchama, chaos. And that's what Amalek did. They said, once we will separate ourselves at the time when the world was so united, Jews, not Jews, goyim, objects, not objects, animals, trees, the world was completely united, we're going to create an opportunity for chaos. And that's why we say that Hashem's chair is not complete. Because they made themselves into their own entity. And as long as they're their own entity, Hashem can't be complete. Because they don't want to be a part of HaKadosh Baruch. And this is what we see is actually a very consistent line with all evil inclination. We think of evil inclination, he wants to hurt us, he wants to fight us, he wants to harm us. Not true at all. The evil inclination, the only goal it wants to do is just to create separation. Once there is separation, there are twos. Once there are twos, there is a lot of space for chaos to exist. We can see this even with the name of what evil inclination, what we call evil inclination. In the Zohar, there's the word for evil and all its doings. What is it, Rabbi Chaim? Sitra. What does Sitra Acha mean? Evil. But if we take the word Sitra Acha and we translate it, which is something that we encourage everyone to do, a word that we hear often, we should understand it. Even understanding one word can change your entire life. So, what does Sitra Acha mean? Very simple. Sitra, a leader. Achra. What does Achra mean? Acher. What does that mean in translation? Another leader. Where the evil inclination, its goal is to do what? Not to fight you, not to make balagan, but just to create another. And once there is another side by side with Hashem, there could never be peace. As long as there is another existing, standing with Hashem, there could never be a place where there is no suffering and hardship and evil and bad. And the Yetzer Hara, all what you need to do is create a little bit separation. That little separation is enough to destroy the world. We see that even with the snake. You know, a lot of time we have a misconception on what was the sin of Adam. He ate fruit. How much fruit we eat today? A lot of fruit. We don't destroy the world for it. What was the sin that caused so much destruction that till today we see the world is in chaos? What? Because of one sin of eating a fruit? No, come on. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was like that? I don't think so. So the Zohar HaKadosh, he says, what was the sin of Adam? It was very simple. The snake came to Adam. What did he tell Adam? Eat the fruit, not because it tastes good. He didn't tell him, Adam, you know there's this new fruit that came out. You have to try it. Bichlalo. What did he say? Eat from the fruit and eat from the fruit and you will become Elokim. Meaning what? He said, Adam, you don't understand what's happening now. In the world there's only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's only one. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is taking advantage that there's only one. So what is he telling you? Don't eat from the tree. But Adam, you're really going to live in a world that there's only one leader that's preventing you from leading too? Adam, eat from the tree and you will become what? And you will become God. The moment that Adam accepted upon himself, I'm going to eat for the tree and become another, the world was destroyed and chaos leads till today. Why is that? Because the moment the thought within man to become a second existed, what was created as an immediately result of that? Space for chaos. Space for balagan, space for war, space for suffering, space for the Yetzer Hara, for the evil, to create complete destruction within our life. And here we see, what is the cure for that? What is the cure for war? What is the cure for destruction? So we see it in the Torah, in Parashat Mishpatim. There's a pasuk that every year when we read it, our skin gets mamash, how do you call it? Tzmarmoret, mikabli, mamash, tzmarmoret when you hear it. In Parashat Mishpatim, it said that when Bnei Yisrael were about to go to war, they were scared, miskenim. They said, we're learners, we're Torah learners, we're rabbanim. We're going to fight war against these animals, against these beasts. How are we going to win? The Torah says Moshe would take all the nation. What did he tell them? Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel. You're going to war, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give you your enemies in your hand. So he said, what is Shema Yisrael? Rashi there explains, what is Shema Yisrael? That Moshe told them, listen, Tzadikim, you're going to war? Say Shema Yisrael, and the fact that you said Shema Yisrael, you won't even fight the war. Your enemies will be put in your hand. So he said, why is Shema the secret of taking one's enemies and putting them in his hand? What was so powerful that Moshe told Bnei Yisrael the secret of winning all wars by doing Shema? So by this we understand it's very simple. What is Shema?
You declare that it's
Shema Israel. Hashem, no Rabotai. Hashem Elokeinu. Hashem Echad. What does that mean in translation? We say, listen Israel. Let's make it clear. Hashem is our God and Hashem is Echad. He's alone. And just the fact that you announced and you put a stamp that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is alone and there is only one, what happens?
no chaos.
There's no more chaos because there's no twos. We're the enemies and they're no longer enemies. They be put in your hand because there's no base for chaos to exist. And that's how Bnei Yisrael were winning wars. They were doing Shema, taking upon themselves that Hashem is one, and their enemy that they're about to fight wasn't even their enemy anymore. They lost the ability to be called an enemy, to be called another. Because as long as Hashem is one, there is nothing else. Don't worry, Hashem will fight for you and you're just going to inhabit. How will Hashem fight for you? It makes perfect sense. The fact that He is one cancels their ability to fight, cancels the ability for negative to even exist. And we see this pattern throughout the entire Torah. We see it with what the Ma'am Lo'eh says. Where it says, V'yim ben Aharon, v'yom Moshe kuma Hashem, v'yafut zo'evecha. The Torah says that Moshe told Bnei Israel, take the closet with the tablets within it, go to war, and your enemies will disappear. Now, if the Torah says your enemies will disappear, I don't think it's being dramatic. I don't think that the Torah was using the language of your enemies will disappear as being a dramatic language. The Torah is never dramatic. So if it says that your enemies will disappear, it comes from somewhere. So what is this concept of your enemies will disappear? Very, very simple. Bnei Yisrael, they would go to war with what? They would take the tablets that were given when?
In Sinai.
Har Sinai, the moment where Hashem
Give the Torah.
declared Anochi, took over the entire world, and they would put the closet in front. The moment the closet that represents the Torah, that the Torah in its essence creates one, where it says Kol Netivotei Shalom, takes many lanes and makes them one. In that moment, what was causing? It was causing the enemies to disappear. Not that they were physically disappearing, that they were losing their grasp as an enemy from the first place. That they didn't have any ability to even fight a war. And that is about the rule that's throughout our entire life. The only way of winning Yetzer Hara is not even fighting him. It's just not giving him an ability to create a war. It's taking Yetzer Hara and making it very clear that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one, and all the world is one, and if all the world is one, then even the Yetzer Hara is a part of Hashem. So he no longer holds grasp as an enemy towards you. The secret of taking over this world is not fighting it. The secret of taking over this world is coming to this clear realization Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one and His name is one. That is only when we can truly bring Him to a place of being complete, is when we're able to call Him one. How you call Him one? Make Him one. If you will make Him one, you will be one. And this is what Rabotai, we say even in the Shema. And the Shema is very unique. The Gemara in Ta'anit, it says that Shema is the concentration of the entire Torah. That's why in times of danger, in times the person about to pass away, they would do Shema. Because Shema, it's like all the Torah concentrated within one sentence. So they would say Shema as a way of like including themselves with the entire Torah Kula. Within the Shema, the sentence is very unique. We say Va'afta et Hashem b'chol levavecha. What does that mean? That we must love HaKadosh Baruch Hu with what? With all our hearts. Levavechem. Why plural? Why plural? Why two? Since when does a man have two hearts? Who has two hearts? Who has two hearts? No, Rabotai, who has two hearts? So Chazal explained something very simple. Chazal explained, what is Va'avta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha? You have to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all your hearts. Referring to what? To Yetzer Tov and to Yetzer Hara. To the good inclination and to the bad inclination. How can you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu with your bad inclination? How can you bring yourself to a place of loving Hashem with your evil? It's very simple. Yetzer Hara in his job, what is it to do? To separate. He comes to the man, he says, your neshama and your body, they're two separate things. Your neshama is spiritual, your body is physical. Your neshama can stay in Bet Knesset, your body will continue at work. The essence of the Satan is to do what? The essence of the Satan is to try to bring a person to a place of what? Of separation, of two hearts. And once a person has two hearts, he has a spiritual aspect, he has spiritual hunger, and he gets excitement of tefillot, and he has love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And another side, he has love for physical and love for tehavot. Desires. Once the Satan creates separation, what happens? There is chaos. There is balagan. And we say about that, especially in today's generation, balagan could be even within one man. You could really have a chaos within yourself. People today, they stand by themselves, and they're 20 different entities. They're not two, they're 20. It comes from a place of what? It comes from a place of the doings of the evil inclination. Not by fighting you, not by convincing you, not by torturing you, but by doing what? By trying to separate, saying your body needs to stay physical, it needs to eat, and your neshama is spiritual. Take it to Bet Knesset, take it to Shiur once in a while, and that's it. The essence of doing the Satan is to create separations. And once a person has separation, even within his own mind, within his own head, he can come to a place of what? Of going crazy. Of being alone but losing his mind. How can you have a war within yourself? You can have a war within yourself only when something is splitting with you to two. So the essence of overcoming that is making everything very simple. Making everything one. Coming to a place of understanding that the Satan wants to try to create separation, and you need to put it all together. And once we're able to come to this understanding that no, our job is to make our bodies as holy as our neshama, as our soul, and our soul as lush and as living great like our body, meaning feeding it with the right what the neshama wants to eat. Once we're able to come to that place of unity, so we can also come to a place of a destroying of all negative, of all chaos, of all balagan. And this could be happening even within our own world. In Abotai, we constantly create troubles for ourselves. I'm going to give an example. We look into our world and we have questions. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Where did it come from? We have faith. We clearly have faith. We're all here tonight. We have faith, nachon? But still we ask this question. Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Where does it come from? And sometimes these questions bring people back b'she'ela. Sometimes these questions of why did this happen to me, why did that happen to me, make people leave HaKadosh Baruch Hu, leave the Torah completely. So where did this come from? It comes from something very simple. It comes from your lack of ability to understand that all is one. Let me explain. We look into our world and we start to separate. This is God's doing. This is not. This is made by Hashem. This is not. This is something else. That is something else. Once we come to this place of looking at every single occurrence that happened in our life separate, the blessings is one side, the hardships is another. The good, the bad, whatever it is, we start to create separation. What happened in that moment? The world starts to look like a big mess. And it starts to look like there's a lot of occurrence that just occur without any purpose. But if you believe that you have one goal and one mission in this life, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one that's controlling it, so it's clear to come to the idea of, no, it's all Hashem. And if it's all Hashem, the world looks peace, even if it seems to be chaos in that moment. Because it's all a part of one goal. It's all a part of one mission. That's why tzaddikim are always happy. Because they understand things that suit them at this moment, or things that don't suit them at this moment. They understand it's all one. It's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And being that it's all part of one plan, of one doing, of one nativ, of one lane, so it always is a good day. It's always a peaceful day. It's always a blessed day. But once we start separating, of course we're going to have balagan. And sabotai is something that is anything in our life. The Satan wants to separate even within ourselves, within our own life. And we can see sabotai of how the Satan functions. You know, it's a very interesting Zohar that talks about where the Satan fights. So it goes back to Adam. So Zohar Kadosh says, he says, you want to learn how the Satan fights you in your world? Look how he convinced Adam to sin. What did he do? The evil inclination was an angel, nachon? Sama. He was an angel of Kedusha at the time. In order to bring Adam to a place of falling, he didn't fight face to face with him. He didn't convince him face to face. What did he do? The Torah says, he went to the snake, stood behind the snake. The Zohar even said he held him by his spine, directed his head where to go, but meaning behind him. Then sent the snake to Chava. Chava was pushed forward by the snake, meaning the snake hid behind Chava, and Chava approached Adam. Zohar Kadosh says that's how the Satan fights. He doesn't fight face to face. He fights where? That's something we mentioned many times in our classes. In the shadow. Where the Satan cannot fight you face to face. He only fights in the shadow. So we always ask, why shadow? Why does he need to fight in the shadow? Why can't he fight face to face? Why does the evil inclination always need to stand behind us in the shadow and fight us indirectly? It's very simple. What is Yitzhak doing? He wants to convince you that he is not a part of Hashem. He wants to convince you that he's not a part of you. That you have two different aspects within you. Like what? Like a shadow. What is a shadow? A shadow exists by your existence, but it still acts and it still resembles many aspects of what? Of something different, something that is not a part of you. The Yetzirah is the shadow. What is the shadow? It's something that exists whenever you are standing, when you are in existence, but it tries to separate itself, or at least wants to show that it's separated. And once the Yetzirah, the evil inclination, can come and say, You have a Yetzirah Tov and you have a Yetzirah. You have a good and you have a bad. You have from Hashem and one you have from another. Then what happens? All chaos could exist. Yetzirah in his essence is the shadow. It's the shape of man that comes from man, that is within man, that tries to resemble, that tries to show itself like he's something else, like he's something different. And we even say, that's why, maybe we could say that when a person passes away, Zohar Kadosh is 40 days before he passes away, what disappears? His shadow. Why 40 days before he passes away, his shadow disappears? Because 40 days before he passes away, Hashem's starting to separate things. He's taking his neshama, putting it one place, taking his nefesh, putting it another place, taking the body, separating it from the nefesh, from the ruach, from many different separations. So now that he's already separating all the entities, then the shadow which was always attached to you your entire life, the evil inclination, the moment you were born, he's attached to you. Even he gets separated you for that period of time. But his will and his wish is to do what? To separate him from you when you are alive. Our goal, Abotai, in this world is to not allow him to. To bring it all back to the clear reality that Hashem Echad and He's only one. And this Abotai even exists within not just ourselves, not within our world, not just within us and Satan, even between couples, even between zugot, between a husband and a wife. And it makes Abotai such perfect sense. We see Abotai, when Adam married Chava, how did he marry her? He didn't bring a chuppah, he didn't buy her a ring, he didn't do anything. He looked at her and he said, Basar mi besari, etzem yetzmi, lezot ikar isha. He looked at Chava and he said, Tov, her flesh is my flesh, her bones are my bones. To her, I'm going to call what? A wife. Where the whole essence of being married, of having married is what? It's the concept of what? Of two, no longer being two, and becoming one. And once there is one, there is complete. Once there is complete, you are alone and you are connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why we say that the man has three partners in this world. Who are these three partners? You are you, your wife, and Hashem. Now, in order to be attached to Hashem fully, you have to be complete. How do you get complete? You get married. That's why people that are married, the Torah says they have more spiritual presence from Hashem. Because until you're not married, you are half. Once you got married, you become complete. Once you are complete, who is the third partner that can join? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because you need to be complete in order for Hashem to join. And once you are complete, you are alone with Hashem. What does the Yetzirah do? What is his goal in order to bring destruction within a couple? It's not to fight, it's not to harm, it's just to do one thing. To separate. To create two. And once there is two, what is the third partner that disappears? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Once there is two entities and no longer one, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot rest with it himself. What does the Satan do? He comes to the husband, he says, look what she said to you. She said to you. Look what her, one, did to you, two. Look what she thinks about me. Or she says, look what he did to me. Look what he said about me. Look what he told me. You're looking at your partner, but you're saying what? You're seeing somebody else. You're supposed to be saying, what did I do within this occurrence that occurred her to say that, or to do that, or him to do this, or him to say that? But no. The essence of the Satan is to create what? Separation. And once there is even the slightest of separation, the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu no longer exists. And that is his goal. Once there is separation, there is no longer presence of Hashem. Our job is to keep that unity and to not allow separation, to keep that bond together, to understand that a husband is his wife, and that's what we say in Halacha, Baal keishto. Baal keishto. Husband is his wife, which is a very unique wording. Husband is his wife. When your husband is your wife, meaning they are both one, so there is presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when one says something to the other, he looks and he says, what did I cause? What did I do in order to cause this? Where am I within this picture? Not what is she did and she needs to fix herself. No, what do I do that I have to fix this aspect? Because you're one piece. And as long as you're one piece, everything is easy to fix. But once you start separating, it's the end. She said to me, he said to me, he did that, she said that, he did this, he did that. And the separation brings only more chaos and more chaos and more chaos, make more chaos. We say under the chuppah, Asher bara, sason v'simcha, chatan v'kala, gila rina ditza v'chadva, ahava v'achva, shalom v'reut. What does that mean? It says, Hashem today creates. Which is very strange. Hashem creates today. Hashem bara. Sason v'simcha, chatan v'kala, gila, rina, ditza v'chedva, ahava v'achva, shalom v'reut. So within this last bracha that we essentially seal the wedding, we see something very unique. We say Hashem creates, sason v'simcha, He creates happiness. Within the chatan and kala, sason v'simcha, chatan v'kala, and then it adds another 8 words, which are all the same meaning, which are happiness. So you have that on the day of the wedding, Hashem creates what? He creates 10 words of happiness. Like again, we discounted them. Exclude chatan and kala, it's 10 words. 10 words of happiness within the chatan and kala. Why 10 words of happiness? What is this? What 10 words of happiness? As we know, a man is built from how many pieces? 10. There are 10 sfirot. 10 pieces. One is missing, a man is missing one, he's no longer a man. You have to have all 10 pieces. A complete man has all limbs and all organs and everything intact. Same thing. In order for a man to be complete, there is 10. In order for them to be together, they need to be in what? They need to be be'ahava ve'achva. They have to be love, happiness, rejoice. And once they are with love, with happiness, with rejoice, they are united. And as long as they are united, there's no concept of machloket. There's no basis, there's no base for a fight to even occur. Maybe you can say that's why it's such a mitzvah to make chatan kala happy. Where you're pushing them to become one, you're bonding them together. Where without the happiness of the 10 pieces, there's no couple. So by making them happy, we push them together and we make them into one. Once there is one, Hashem has a new partner he can come down to. Hashem has a new home he can rest within. Our job in this world is not fighting, it's not conquering, it's not suffering, it's nothing. It's just uniting. Once there is unity, everything gets cancelled. All the bad gets cancelled. All becomes good. And that's what we say. Eze wa gibor? HaKovesh et Yitzro. Or Moshel beyitzot. Another one. What does that mean? Who is the real warrior? Who is the one that's a real warrior? Not the one who kills his enemy, the one who destroys the enemy. The one who what? The one who conquers his enemy. What is conquer? Conquer, when you have 2 countries and one wants to conquer, what does he do? He doesn't burn the other country. He takes his borders and he takes the other country, he makes it a part of his own. And once he made it a part of his own, what happened? It became one. So what is the smart of, where is the purpose of going to war? Not to just fight and to destroy, but to become one. Who is the real warrior? Not the one that fights, but the one that becomes one. The one who takes the other side makes it a part of him. And once the one that takes the other side makes it a part of him, he's a gibor. He is a man that has true strength and true koach in this world. And that is, a lesson that we have to hold our entire lives. The way we destroy all negative and all bad is not fighting. It's unifying. And once we are unified within ourselves, once we are unified within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, once we understand that the world is unified as an act of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan and not just occurrence, then we can come to a place of what? Of complete shalom, of complete peace. And this brings us right back to the story of this week, of the Parasha. Yaakov in alav shalom, he's what? He's alone. He's finally alone. But now that he's finally alone, what does Esav, the evil inclination, want to do? Separation. Wants to separate Yaakov. So what does he do? He comes to fight a war. He comes to distract him. He comes to be another. He comes to be a number 2. And Yaakov represents what? The exact opposite of that. He represents emet. He represents truth. What is emet? What is emet? It's truth, but emet is also something very special. It's aleph. That's how you spell emet. Aleph, mem, Taf.
Yatziv.
Aleph is the first letter.
Beginning, the middle, the end.
Mem is the exact center letter.
Yeah.
And Taf is what?
Last one.
The last letter. Yaakov represents unity. He represents beginning, middle, end, all one. There is no one that the evil wants to separate more than Yaakov. So the moment Yaakov reached to a place that he was complete, he became one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he went up one level. The all will of the Satan was to do what? Was just to separate it. That's why the next day, what does Esav do? He comes to show Yaakov's strength. How many men does he bring?
400.
400. Now, we have to understand, 400 men is nothing. Avraham, when he traveled, some Mepharshim say he had thousands of men. Because he had his soldiers, he had his guard, he had his slaves, he had his people that were working his crops, his sheep. He had thousands of men. Why do we give so much importance to Esav's 400? Because Esav's 400 didn't represent 400 men. It represented what? The end, the taf. It's the taf that Yaakov holds. It's one aspect. It's what represents this world. This world is the end, in the sense that this world has quantity, has end, has beginning, has end. The other worlds don't have beginning and end. They're just continuous. Esav comes to Yaakov and says, Yaakov, no. I'm not here to fight you. You're my brother. Join me with the taf. Join me with the end. Take this world with me. Don't be stuck with your world that you are trying to achieve of this one world. Be one with me. We'll be a second entity. And yeah, this is what Esav is not willing to do. Yaakov is not willing to do. Yaakov says, you go on your path. Even though that we are brothers now, leave me alone. And that's where you see where Yaakov started to truly fear. Not when he brought 400 men, but when he told him, I'm your brother. Where Esav, what was he trying to do? He was trying to bring Yaakov to a place of separation. But the moment Yaakov understood that, then he understood that all this balagan of the 400 men, it's what? It's to separate. And this Rabotai, and here we're going to end, attaches to this period of time. Bezat Hashem, in 2 weeks or 1 week, we're all celebrating what holiday? Chanukah. Chanukah is very unique. What does the name Chanukah come from? Chanu? Ka. What is Chanu? It means that there was a war, and as we know, the war of the Choshmonaim, that they fought the Romans or the Greek, whatever they were. Greek, same. What Nevela and Toifa. One's a dead cat, one's a dead dog. They're both bad. And when they fought all those garbage, mamash, what happened? They rested. That's what the word Chanu, kind of they rested. But what's the Ka? Kaf Hey. What is Kaf Hey? So we said yesterday, what is Kaf Hey? If you look at the Shema and we count how many letters? 25. And what was the essence of their resting? It was when they understood and when they reached to a place of what? Of Ka. What's Ka? That they rested here, Chanu Ka. They rested in the Kaf Hey. They rested only when they came to a place of what? Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The sentence of what Shema represents. And we can see even this concept within the menorah. We said the menorah, the Torah describes it, says Miksha Achat. The menorah, it looks like it's multiple pieces, but it's all one piece. But then it says, look, there are 3 to the right, 3 to the left, but no, they're all pointing up. 3 to the right, 3 to the left, they're all pointing up. What does that mean? Why is this weird description? So it's to teach us that what is the concept of Chanukah? It was the essence that even the 3 that are on the right, they represent good, and the 3 that are on the left, they represent bad. They're all pointing where? They're all pointing towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're all pointing at one place. They're all pointing at what? At Enod Milvado. And for me, Rabotai, we have to hold a secret. It says in the Navi, Bayom Ahu Yeh Echad Ushmo Echad. What does that mean? The Navi says, at the time of the Geulah, Hashem will be one and His name will be one. On that day. But the Navi says, Bayom Ahu, on that day. Or on this day, you can call it. Meaning pointing at a specific day. So we always said, why the redemption is pointed at a specific day, or that it looks like we could be pointed. Who means who. It's something we can play with. Not Bayom Hazeh, or you understand? It's something that is movable. Bayom Ahu. What is this concept that on that day the redemption will come? The concept is that we choose when our redemption comes. And we choose Bayom Ahu. We choose what day the redemption will be. When we understand that what? השם אחד ושמו אחד. ביום ההוא יהיה השם אחד ושמו אחד. In the moment that we get up and we say that is one, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one, that was when we completely took upon us of redemption. That is when all bad get cancelled, that's when all negative get cancelled, that's when all fight between us and our family and our partners and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and with ourselves and with everything, completely lose all ability to exist. So Bezrat Hashem, we'll all come to a place of achieving this level of being alone with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That we will all stand like one facing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we will choose this day, and this day will be Bezrat Hashem very, very soon. Amen. Is there any questions, Rabotai?
I have a question.
Ken Tzadik.
This is just a
Baruch
thought
atah
that I
Adonai
have.
Hamshach, Kon Yabishvav.
Amen.
I know that unity is definitely, like I was thinking about this last week, of like unity, that's the goal, I think, to have Bnei Israel. But for some reason, I feel like this whole concept of tribes separated us. Like, why did God have to? And I see it like in Bnei Israel now. You have the Reform movement, you have the Conservative movement, you have all these types of Bnei Israel. Why did God create 4 different wives and then created 12 different tribes? You see it even in the Parasha. Every single tribe had its own kind of little
Very good question.
thing, and like
So I have a question.
already they failed.
When you look at the bucket of blue chips, blue candies, do you see that's unity? No, they're just a bucket of all the same thing. When do you say, wow, that's unity? When you start to see completely different things all working together. If you were to see 10 of the same men doing the same task, you would say that's strange, that's not But when you see an entire family working together to put, one does this and one does that, and one is small, so he does the task of what the small one can do, and the big one helps the small one complete his task. That's unity. Unity is that there is small, big, but they're all working together to complete each other. Unity is not all the same. That's just waste when you have all the same. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to the world in order to create unity. Why did he send Neshamot down to the world? It is because in Gan Eden, the Neshamot, they're all stuck at their place. The big ones stay big, the small ones stay small. Amen. The big ones stay big, the small ones stay small. Meaning that they could not share merit to each other. So Hashem said, I'm going to send them down to the world. There's a chance they might get dirty, and they might sin, and they might fall. But there's a chance that what? That the big Neshamot will help the small ones grow. And overall, they will all go up. So unity comes from an aspect of different pieces working together. A body exists. Does it work in unity?
Yeah.
Nachon? Why is there a brain and a head and a lung and a kidney? Why? What a waste of design. It's a waste of design. HaKadosh Baruch Hu just created all. One big glump of flesh. One big glump. One big same flesh that's outside, inside. He could have. Why not? It could have been like that. Why create bones and veins and blood and this and that and this and lungs? All that time for what? Because even within a man, in order for him to be at peace, he cannot be at peace with one color. He needs to have the brain that does this, and the lungs that does this, and the brain sends this to that part, and that part and that part to that part. And that's when there is shlemut. That is when there is wholesome. Wholesome represents when there is unity, when it represents that there's different aspects working all together to help one another.
So you need everything in order to create.
A body needs the brain, the same way it needs a lung, the same way it needs a... So that's why we say, we need Ashkenaz for the brain. Sfarad for the heart. We need
Sfarad for the food.
Tunisians for the bucha, for the damchut. How do you call it? It's not the part of the body, but it's the keter. It's the crown. It's what outside of the body that. So we need all pieces, nachon?
Yes, definitely.
So you're missing one, there's nothing. It's the same. Am Yisrael is like that. Am Yisrael needs all the tribes. And once there is all the tribes, then there is an Am. Any other questions, Rabotai? Any other questions? Zio? Oh, Hashem, a very smart group today. So, Rabotai.